Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how COVID has affected the homeless population. Now, there's an interesting thing. Individuals that are experiencing homelessness are some of the most vulnerable in the world. And unfortunately, COVID-19 has affected people that experience vulnerabilities in a really, really dramatic way. And besides the life-altering health effects of COVID, those experiencing homelessness have faced other disruptions. We're going to talk about three of them today. Things that may have been obvious, but still should be brought up and talked about. The first thing that we should note is the way that services have been traditionally offered to homeless individuals have been in a congregate setting with lots of people together. Homeless shelters featuring 200-300 people sleeping on bunk beds, gathering in dining halls, very much akin to something like a school. That amount of people close together is not flying in a post-COVID world. And eventually, we'll get back to it. It'll make sense. It makes sense to provide services in that way. However, during COVID, the need to social distance has all of a sudden made many of these opportunities for shelter be non-existent, because you couldn't spend that amount of resources and time to be able to put people 6 feet apart in shelters that weren't built to be able to have that many people. Instead of being able to house 300 people, it could house 50 people. Different communities have tackled this in different ways. For example, in San Diego, the Regional Task Force to End Homelessness, in partnership with the City of San Diego and other groups, set up the Conference Center of San Diego, one of the conference centers there, that was no longer being used for events or conferences, for good reason, and set it up as one of the world's largest homeless shelters. People were given plenty of room to sleep spaced out, apart from each other. You may have seen some of the controversy with individuals being spaced out in sleeping arrangements outside in Las Vegas. And while that is a horrible situation, it really does reflect the realities of you have too many people, not enough beds, and you no longer can sleep them very close to each other. How do you tackle this situation? For individuals experiencing homelessness, wanting to stay away and wanting to be able to protect themselves and social distance has been very, very hard. And that's the second thing, is the inability for me to social distance if I'm a homeless individual and want to receive services. In the world of those service providers that serve the homeless, there's a term called service resistant. It's people that don't want to come in and get services. They don't want to shower. They don't want to work with a case manager. They really just prefer to be left alone. This number has multiplied, unfortunately, over the past year. And the reason why is because of the concern with getting COVID. Many of these people understand that their health is already fragile. Many fall within vulnerable groups. Many are hopefully waiting out for a point where they can be vaccinated, like so many other of us. And they really are concerned about coming into a congregate area to receive these services, even with the needs they're put in that they have, and the even with the things service providers are do to try and help them feel safer. And the steps that are taken to make it safer, it still causes people to be a little more service resistant. And so that need for social distancing and the inability to often do it has put a huge stress on individuals experiencing homelessness. The third thing, which many may not have thought about, is the lockdowns that have happened throughout the country. Now, while the lockdowns have probably saved many lives, they also have come at an economic cost I think anybody is aware of. They've come at a unique cost to individuals that are homeless. You see, many places that provide essential services are not the places that homeless individuals would often frequent. When restaurants shut down, when other places shut down, gas stations, those type of things, all of a sudden, the places where homeless individuals got the necessary things to survive were gone. We tend to think of people as homeless as having no resources, when often they just don't have enough resources to get housing. They still buy food, they still need toiletries, they still try and live as manageable lives as they can. But with laundromats closed, with gyms closed, with gas stations closed, with some grocery stores closed, all of a sudden the ability for them to get those resources was severely dampened. And thankfully, there's wonderful groups that stepped in. I mentioned San Diego earlier, but there's another group in San Diego, the Lucky Duck Foundation, that teamed up with some philanthropic groups to provide meals 3 days a week that case managers can take out and share with the homeless population, realizing that the traditional places they were able to get food were no longer there. There's been amazing work by providers around the country, by foundations, by others that have really helped mitigate some of the costs of this pandemic. But the costs are still there. And so when you're thinking of homeless individuals, you're thinking of your friends that may volunteer or run a homeless shelter or work in those groups, think of the extra costs and burdens that are associated with them. Because many are doing as much as they can with far less resources than ever, and they need our help, and they need it desperately.